The West Virginia Mountaineers basketball squad takes down Blazers of UAB. But it was not the Blazers who were on fire in this game. It were those West Virginia Mountaineers. Me and Mountaineer Paul, we're going to talk about it right after this. What is up, college hoops fans and fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Couz.
And this is Mountaineer Paul.
And we present to you
Hoops from the Hills.
What is going on, Mountaineer Nation? Thank you for joining Paul and I here once again as we talk about West Virginia's victory over the UAB Blazers. Before we get started into the show, folks, I ask, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. Me and Paul are trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark, which is the goal of every YouTuber. Also, folks, don't forget to drop a comment below. Let us know what you think about the Mountaineer victory. What were the takeaways for you? And, what were the positives, negatives? And also, what we'll get into a little bit later is some comments that Emmit Matthews made after the game about his knee injury. I want you to drop a comment below about that as well once we discuss that, so you'll know what we're talking about. And also, check Mountaineer Paul and I out on Twitter. I'm at Couz206, and Paul is over at Paul Mountaineer. Well, Paul, what were your first initial thoughts about the game, my man?
Man, it was a hanky-janky, just a weird type of feeling, kind of a game for me. There wasn't a whole lot of flow to it. A lot of that had to do with the referees. I think the referees, I wish they'd put their whistles in their pockets. But unfortunately, Bob Huggins' reputation precedes him, and these referees come into these games with Bob Huggins ready to blow the whistle because they hear all about our teams and how physical they are. Then you've got Andy Kennedy, who is a disciple of Bob Huggins and comes from he learned that scheme, learned a lot of the things that he believes in under Bob Huggins, and so two teams are banging it out. Unfortunately, we had the bigger, stronger guys in most cases. And so we get a little more foul calls, I feel like, is how it goes. But obviously really proud of the team. Felt like offensively they showed out again. This was probably their best wall-to-wall defensive performance of the year so far. Even Coach Huggins commented on that after the game and said that he was happy with it. So if he's happy with it, I'm happy with it. Definitely, and 11 points is definitely a serviceable win. That covers the spread, so all in all, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the last video we did, man, good teams win, great teams cover. West Virginia was only favored by 5.5 in this game. I think is what it ended up being, and they win by 11. So another cover for the Mountaineers once again.
And what could turn out to be a quad one win by the end.
Absolutely. Yeah, UAB is expected to win Conference USA this year, and will more than likely be an NCAA tournament team. So this is a big win. This is a good win. I've even seen some folks on Twitter say they think this might be a bigger win. And this is media members now. This is not fans, but media members saying this might be a better win than beating Xavier would have been. So I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but the fact still remains it's a good win for the Mountaineers. Real quick, guys, I had already asked you to comment and subscribe. Also, please don't forget, give us that thumbs up button below, too, if you like what we're doing here on Hoops from the Hills. And tell all your friends about us, man. A lot of you out there might follow us on our football channels, Couz's Corner and Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. We need you right here as well for all of your Mountaineer Hoops content. Let's look at the team stats real quick from this game. I'll share them with the audience here. When you look at the team stats here, obviously you've got the score, 81-70, West Virginia. Field goals, West Virginia shot 50% from the floor. UAB shot 47.4%, so good shooting really from both teams. 3-point percentage, West Virginia shot 26.3, UAB 31.3, which, West Virginia did not shoot the ball as well from three as they had been in previous games, but they really didn't need to. And when we look at the free throws, now here's where I thought the difference in the game, or one of the big differences in the game was, and that's the free throws. West Virginia was 22 out of 25 for 88% from the line. Just fantastic shooting down the stretch. Kedrian Johnson alone was 7 out of 7 from the line. And UAB was 11 of 18, which is only 61.1%. And that 11-point difference from the free throw stripe was the difference in the game. So a big deal were those free throws. Then rebounding, West Virginia actually got out-rebounded by 32-30. Assists, 16-14 in favor of UAB. Steals, 9-9. Blocks, 2 for UAB, 3 for the Mountaineers. Total turnovers, West Virginia had 13, but forced 19 by UAB. So another difference. And also, West Virginia was able to turn most of those turnovers into points. So that was another big advantage that West Virginia had in this game. Fouls was 23 for UAB, 21 for West Virginia. But most of West Virginia's fouls were on the floor, which is why UAB didn't shoot near as many free throws. And then the largest lead, UAB did take a 3-point lead at one point early in the second half, but that lead did not last. And West Virginia led by 13 at one point in the game before finally winning it by 11. So, Paul, of those stats, what really stands out to you?
The funniest thing about these stats to me, man, like, since when have you ever seen a Bob Huggins team getting out rebounded and shooting 22 to 25 from the free throw line? It just doesn't happen. It's so against everything we've ever seen. We're so used to having teams that don't rebound, don't shoot, or I'm sorry, I'm going to cut that out too. We're so used to having teams that rebound, can't shoot, and don't shoot from the free throw line. And this team does the opposite of all those things. They can shoot it, they can hit it from the free throw line, and they really don't rebound as well as teams in the past. Not that they don't rebound. It's just once we get into some of the smaller lineups, Mo McGee, I don't think he's learned quite how to rebound yet. James Okonkwo does a little bit, but he's still learning. He's got the size. I think he's just learning technique. Right. Obviously, Jimmy Bell has a large, and he between he and Emmit Matthews are basically our two best rebounders.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rebounding stat, it's just always weird to see us on the losing end of that these days. And it wasn't like UAB was bigger than us. The kid that transferred him to Mississippi State was a smaller guy. He was a bull, don't get me wrong. I mean, he was backing down people last night, but he still didn't have the height advantage. And then they had another guy that came in that, man, you can tell Andy Kennedy has those guys in the weight room, though. A lot of those guys, especially in their forwards, were bigger dudes. I was surprised you don't see that out of the Conference USA too much.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, Andy Kennedy's got some ball players. I mean, but what I was – well, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But right now I want to talk about the individual stats. First, let's look at UAB. Their leading scorer was Jelly Walker. I mean, his name is Jordan Walker, goes by Jelly. But West Virginia was ready for that. West Virginia was ready for that jelly, baby, because Kedrian Johnson locked him down. And I know he scored 19 points, but he averaged 27 a game, folks. And he committed 7 turnovers in this game. So,
how many shots did he shoot?
Oh, yeah. He was 6 of 17 from the floor.
Right.
So, he had to put up 17 shots to get those 19 points. Kedrian Johnson and Joe Toussaint just absolutely locked him down. And but he was the leading scorer for them with 19. KJ Buffin had 11. Davis came off the bench for them, played a really good game. He had 19. He was a good player for him inside. And I remember a couple times James Okonkwo just could not do anything with that guy inside.
Right. JB and Davis.
Yeah. Yes. But those were leading scorers for UAB. And as far as rebounding goes, Davis had 9 rebounds. So he was 1 rebound off from a double-double. Buffin had 7 rebounds. Jemison had 5 rebounds. Those were your leading players for the Blazers. But when you look at the Mountaineers, man, the leading scorer for this game was actually Kedrian Johnson. So not only did he play lockdown defense on one of the premier scorers in the country, he also dropped 17 points of his own in this game. And, Kedrian's not known as a big scorer, but he had a really good night last night, dropped in 17 points, 7 of 7 from the foul line, 5 of 10 from the floor, 2 rebounds.
He's just everything you want in a senior guard. Like when I watch Kedrian play, he is the sum total of a guy that's been in college for 4 or 5 years and he uses that experience every single game. And even in the post game press conferences, you hear him talk. He talks like a coach would talk.
Mhm.
You know, the way he talks about different sets and different things and what he sees, and exactly how he talked about how they defended Jelly Walker and how they felt like making him drive to the basket and making him shoot over taller players was a game plan they had going into the game. Just so many different things about him impressed me, and really he's really grown into one of the best guards that we've ever had.
Yeah, I love the guy, man. I really do. To me, he
So does
embodies
Bob Huggins.
yeah. To me, he embodies everything of what it's like to be a Mountaineer, man. He plays hard. He's good. He's a good leader. I mean, he never makes excuses. I mean, he just has a great attitude. I mean, he's uh, plays great defense. And, we all know Hugs loves those guys that play hard nosed defense. But look at some other guys that had good nights. Emmit Matthews Jr., man, 4 of 5 from downtown, 16 points. Also had 9 rebounds. Was the leading rebounder for the team. Then you had Trey Mitchell, who had 13 points and 7 rebounds. Jimmy Bell Jr., 8 points, 8 rebounds. So he had a solid night.
Great game.
Yeah, he did. And Jimmy Bell does a lot of the things that don't always make the stat sheet. He played good defense down low. He's a big body that they have trouble moving around down on the low block. So he's a force down there. And I think he really is kind of going under the radar a little bit as to how good he's actually playing right now. And then off the bench, once again, Mr. Consistency, Joe Toussaint, 14 points, 3 steals. Another big night for him. Was 5 of 12 shooting, 4 of 4 from the free throw stripe. So once again, Joe Toussaint. The one person you didn't hear on that list was Eric Stevenson. He had a rough night, spent most of the night in foul trouble. Was only able to garner 8 points, but he did make 6 of 7 from the foul line, which came at important times in the game. And he was, as always, he was a vocal leader out there and was rallying the team as he always does. But that's your key individual stats. What do you think about Emmett's performance last night, Paul?
Amazing, man. He did a great job, but he did a fantastic job, especially after the scare he had to come in and drain those shots like he did. I mean, 3 in a row, and it was almost like it motivated him. What did you think?
Maybe you could say that. I mean, he did seem like he was playing like a man possessed, so to speak. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Just he was just as honed in. He was focused, and he was hell bent on having a good night. And regardless of what happened, and what you was talking about earlier, I forgot what you said.
The knee.
Yeah, when you mentioned the knee earlier, yeah, he got kind of a guy that, for those of you who may not have seen it, he got kind of undercut a little bit. Him and another UAB defender were going for the ball at the same time. The UAB defender kind of came down on Emmett's knee, and he kind of landed in an awkward position and was in pain, and actually had to leave the game and went back to the locker room. Well, he came back out a few minutes later and drained like 3 more 3-pointers or whatever, and played great. But it really looked bad. I mean, I thought he was going to be out. I really did. The way he was grimacing in pain, and the fact that he had to come, he was trying to stay in the game and he wasn't able to. I was worried about him. I'm not going to lie, man, because it didn't look good. So when he comes back out and plays well, I'm thinking, okay, he's okay.
Maybe things are okay.
Yeah. And then after the game, something very interesting happened. And Paul brought this to my attention. But during the post-game presser, they asked him about his knee. And he basically said, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not answering questions about my knee. Another reporter asked another question. He said, I'm not answering questions about my knee. So, Paul, when you heard him say that, what were your thoughts?
I think, I don't know if it was a form of denial, a way for him to not acknowledge it. It's not there. It's not actually hurt. That's the first thing that came to my mind. What was he in denial about it? Did he get some news about it that he wasn't happy with? Is it something that is it one of those injuries that you can play through, but can't get worse? Just so many things. I thought so many things. Is it an injury at all? But he did a really poor job of dousing the flame of doubt about it to me, because if you have an injury and you don't want people to know about it, most people will still lie and say I'm okay, or you don't answer the way he did. People are going to speculate after that, and he was very defensive, um, even angry. It seemed like to me, he wasn't happy.
Right.
Very interesting. It obviously caught my ear, which is why I told you needed to watch it. We like to read between the lines and things. Sometimes too much. I don't think we're doing that here.
I don't think so. And what was interesting too, later on after I watched it, something told me, I don't know why, I was sitting at the table eating, and something told me to go back and watch that video again to see if I could pick up on anything new. Well, I did, and lo and behold, and this was just a couple hours after you and I talked the first time. Lo and behold, on the WVU Sports YouTube channel, they had taken it off. So
Yeah.
they took that question and his answers about his knee completely out of the video. So that raises to me an even bigger red flag. So here's my take on it. There's two different reasons why they would do that. One, they didn't want to make Emmett look bad because of the way he answered the question. Or two, and this is what I think's the case, and that is they don't want opponents thinking Emmett's hurt or knowing Emmett's hurt or whatever. But to me, if he's not hurt, then they wouldn't care.
Right.
I mean, that's my opinion. If he's not hurt, then why would they care that he answered the question that way? And why would they remove it? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It was very odd, very odd. And the only other thing I could think of is maybe maybe Coach Huggins has told the players to never comment on injuries. But it seems to me like he would have said that. Like, look, that's something you have to ask Coach Hugs about, or something like that. But don't just say flat out, I'm not answering that question. I don't know.
Well, we know somebody personally that may have an answer for us. We'll have to get a hold of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens there. I mean, obviously, the way he come out and played afterwards, if he is injured, it's probably nothing serious because he was able to play through it. But if there's any little bit of pain or anything there, they obviously don't want the opponent to pick up on it, I guess. And to me, that's probably why he answered the question that way. He probably could have been a little bit more respectful in the way he answered the question. But look, it was after a game. He's emotional. I'm not going to throw shade at the young man at all for this. I love Emmit Matthews. He's one of my favorite players.
Well,
so my comments are in no way, shape, or form to throw shade at him. I just want to make that clear.
fair, and neither am I. I want to defend him because if you think about it, not only is there in the short term opponents that could possibly get some kind of upper hand or whatever you want to say, but also his long term future, NBA pro scouts, people like that may want to know if he's injured long term or not, and this could hurt him in the draft process as well. This is his last year, so he came back home for a reason to play for a good team that can get exposure. I would really hate to see that all doused.
Right. Well, Paul, I think is there anything else you want to talk about in this game? Any other players you want to touch on before we sign off here?
You sent me a stat earlier about Stevenson. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Let's talk about that real quick. That's something the audience may want to hear about. Eric Stevenson, for those of you who are interested in hearing about this, Eric Stevenson the team rather, was minus 11 with him on the court last night. And as through the course of the season, they are actually 22 points better with him on the bench. And it just so happens they've lost those two games by a combined 22 points. So now on the surface, it looks like they're better without Eric Stevenson on the court. And he's their leading scorer. He's averaging over 14 a game.
Yeah.
It was going into last night. That average may have dropped slightly. But the point is he's averaging 13, 14 points a game. But yet it looks like statistically they're a better team without him on the court. But what are your thoughts on that stat, Paul? Do you think it means anything?
It's interesting. If that plays out over the course of a season, then it absolutely means something. That stat is there for a reason. It's a very telling stat, but very, very short term look at that. Definitely a small sample size. Um, I mean, from the looks of things, from the eye test, there are certainly times that we need him on the court. Um, whenever Emmett's not on the floor, we usually need him on the floor. Somebody that can score the ball. Uh, Does he do things that hurt the team sometimes? Sure. He's reckless. He throws the ball away. He does do certain things. He gets, one of the things I was taught playing ball in school is you never leave your feet without a place to go with the ball. He does that quite a bit. He usually gets in the air and then doesn't know what to do with it. There are things but those are the things you take with him because he usually makes up for it. He takes charges. If he's stroking it from downtown, there's no better that I've seen in a Mountaineer uniform going back a long way, maybe even Pittsnogle or Gansey or Air Bear or somebody like that. But he's one of those kind of guys that can get so hot and really, really just win a game for you. So, I don't want to overreact to that, but that is a stat that we need to keep an eye on for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And I think in last night's game, I kind of take it with a grain of salt because that lineup last night, UAB plays a small lineup. They play a lot of small, fast guards. Quickness and speed is not really his thing. He's more of a shooter.
Right.
He's a scorer. He can jump, but he's not real fast and real quick. Well, but Keedy Johnson and Joe Toussaint are. So, they were in the game a lot together last night, more so than before throughout the season. And that showed in the stat sheet because both of them played a lot of minutes and played well. But the reason for that, in my opinion, not only obviously Stevenson was in foul trouble, yes, but I think the reason they played so well with that lineup in there is because that's what Joe Toussaint and Kedrian Johnson are. They're quick, and they can keep up with those guards from UAB better than probably what Stevenson can. So I don't think the rest of the year you're going to see those two guys in the game as much together, meaning Kedrian and Toussaint. And I also think that stat about Eric will probably get better over time because I do think, like you said, I do think he's a very important piece of the team. And I think that stat there's kind of a short sample size, like you talked about right now, for that to be more than maybe a coincidence. But we'll see. There could be more to it than that. Time will tell.
One last thing I wanted to touch on before we go. What did you make of the Jose Perez comments? Did you hear anything on that? And what I really found interesting was they asked him if he'd watched any tape on Perez. He said no. He's never even watched him play, not even before he transferred. I found that to be very interesting. So that's another situation where he's trusting his guys to make these choices for him.
Oh yeah.
But I thought it was really interesting that he just never even watched him play. They were trying to ask him how they, these guys are reporters. They're wanting to write stories. Everybody's excited because the team's playing well. And everybody wants to say, can you imagine this team when Jose Perez comes and is a part of this rotation? You could even ask the opposite of that question. Would it mess up the rotation? But he said he's really frustrated. He said, listen, they keep telling us we have to wait, and I'm just starting to wonder, people keep saying, no, it's for sure going to happen during the second semester. But what if he doesn't play for us this year? Because I think Jose Perez is a big key to this team that maybe not a lot of people are thinking about right now. But I think, he's that extra guard that we need that can handle the ball, especially if we're going to need to play Keedy and Joe at the same time a little more. To have a Perez who can play the true point at 6'5", unlike Eric. And it could also, the other thing it do is can keep Eric off the ball because Bob was talking about maybe playing Eric Stevenson as a point guard more because he can handle it a little bit. Somebody, anybody else outside of Joe and Keedy that can bring it up. And so Jose Perez is going to be so important to this team once he does land, if he comes to the, to the team. But man, it was frustrating to hear Bob be frustrated about it, saying he has no idea when it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll probably be any time, probably closer to the end of the semester, which is sometime January-ish, I think. But yeah, those are interesting comments. But that's typical Hugs. I mean, he didn't watch. We all remember Deuce McBride, how good he was. He had never seen Deuce McBride play in person ever, but yet he recruited him. So Hugs he's got a lot of contacts out there, high school coaches, JUCO coaches all across the country, and he's got certain guys that when they tell him a guy's good, he takes them at their word. And if like Frank Martin told him how good Eric Stevenson was, so he said okay, he went after him. I don't even know if he ever saw him play. So I mean, that's just Hugs, man. But it's hard to argue with him. He's a Hall of Famer, but it is very interesting that he trusts people that much. But it'll be interesting to see. But as far as Jose goes, yeah, I look for it to happen pretty soon. It'd be a disappointment if it don't, because we all know the NCAA likes to drag their feet on this stuff. But my gut feeling is they're waiting closer to the end of the semester to pull the trigger on his.
Well, let's hope so, because he's the type of guy that's got the type of skill set. He might just say screw it and go to the NBA at the end of this year if he doesn't get to play.
Right, and he may. But I'd love to see him in a Mountaineer uniform for at least Big 12 play, because we're going to need it. Like you said, that's having a 6'5" guard that can handle the basketball. That's not something most teams are going to be able to.
That averages 18 points a game.
Yeah, most teams aren't going to be able to guard that, I don't think. Well, guys, listen, Paul and I really appreciate you guys for supporting us here on Hoops from the Hills. We ask that you please go check us out our other channels. I'm over at Couz's Corner, which is my football channel. Mountaineer Paul is at Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. That's his football channel. We do collab together some on our individual channels there as well, but we also do a lot of our own stuff. So subscribe to our channels, please. Please check us out on Twitter at Couz206 and at Paul Mountaineer. Please subscribe to this channel. Please give us the thumbs up. Please drop a comment. All that helps the YouTube algorithm out. Guys, if you want to send us, look, we don't have the ability to monetize this channel yet because we don't have 1,000 subscribers or the amount of watch hours we need. But if you want to shoot us a one-time donation, we can put our Venmo and our Cash App links in the description box for you. If you want to send us a one-time donation, it would be much appreciated. Paul, any parting words?
No, just let's just keep this momentum going, man. And we'll be adding more content to this channel as the year goes on. Football season finally wound up. We're just waiting on this portal stuff to all go away, and then it'll be probably solely on this channel for a while.
Absolutely, and you'll probably start seeing Paul and I drop some of our own individual videos here on this channel too. Not every video we do will be, will be together, because we know these 20, 30-minute videos may be too long for some of you. We'll probably be dropping some shorter 10, 15-minute stuff that we do individually on here as well throughout the season. At least that's our goal anyway. But we do appreciate you dropping by, checking us out. Please subscribe, please like, please share, please comment, do all that stuff. You know what to do. And until next time, Mountaineer Paul and Couz are out.